The encounter. Tom maneuvered through the crowded walkways of Nethys Prime's intergalactic port, his eyes wide with the shock of colors, sounds, and alien languages that filled the air. Around him, traders from a dozen star systems shouted over each other, peddling everything from rare minerals to exotic pets. As Tom watched a group of children chasing a floating orb, he bumped into a tall, feathered creature, who squawked an apology in a dialect he couldn't understand. He smiled and nodded, trying to appear unfazed. A hand clapped him on the shoulder. "First time at the crossroads, huh?" A grinning face appeared beside him, humanoid but with an eerie luminescence to his skin. "Name's Rilo. You look like you could use a guide." Tom shook his hand, relieved. "Tom, and you're right. It's all a bit overwhelming." Rilo laughed, a sound like the tinkling of chimes. "Stick with me, human. I'll show you the ropes." As they walked, Rilo explained the do's and don'ts of the port, pointing out the best stalls for authentic Xelian spices and the quickest routes through the chaotic bazaar. Their conversation was interrupted when a sudden commotion broke out nearby. A small crowd had gathered around two figures in the center of a heated dispute. "Thief! She's a thief!" yelled a burly vendor, pointing at a slender figure cloaked in a flowing robe. The accused, clearly distressed, tried to defend herself in a flurry of high-pitched tones. "What's happening there?" Tom asked, his curiosity piqued. "That's Mira," Rilo said, his tone darkening. "She's Xelian, and if she's in trouble, it's probably not her fault. These markets can be brutal for the uninitiated." Without a second thought, Tom headed towards the commotion, Rilo a step behind. As they approached, Tom called out, "Hey, what's the problem here?" The vendor spun around, his face contorted in anger. "This creature tried to steal from me. Look." He held up a shimmering stone, its surface swirling with light. Mira responded in broken galactic standard, "No steal, no steal. Just looking, asking price only." Tom turned to the vendor. "Did you see her take it, or did she just pick it up to look at it?" The vendor hesitated, the certainty in his accusation waning under Tom's calm scrutiny. Mira looked at Tom, her eyes wide with gratitude. "She was just curious," Tom continued, his voice firm but diplomatic. "Why not show her the price and let her decide? No harm done." Grumbling, the vendor put the stone back on his stall and muttered a price. Mira shook her head, obviously unable to afford it, and turned to leave. "Wait," Tom called after her. "Let me buy it for you." Mira froze, then slowly turned back. "Why?" Tom shrugged, glancing at the stone. "Call it a welcome gift. Rilo here was just showing me the ropes. Seems only fair I pass on the goodwill." As Tom paid for the stone, Myra's expression softened. "Thank you," she said, her voice filled with relief. "I am Mira." "Tom," he replied, handing her the stone. "Pleased to meet you, Mira." Rilo watched the exchange with a broad smile. "Looks like you're getting the hang of this place faster than I thought." Tom chuckled, feeling a warm sense of accomplishment. "Maybe, but I still think I'll need that tour, Rilo." Mira looked between the two men, then back at Tom. "Can I join? I think I owe you a tour of my own now." As the trio moved away from the vendor's stall, laughter and chatter filling the air around them, Tom felt a genuine connection spark. This place, with all its chaos and beauty, was starting to feel a bit like somewhere he could belong. Chapter 2. First Impressions. The next day, under the lavender skies of Nethys Prime, Tom and Mira met outside the diplomatic quarters. Mira wore a vibrant tunic that shifted colors with her mood, currently a calm shade of blue. "Ready for that tour?" Tom asked, his backpack slung over one shoulder. Mira nodded, her face brightening. "Yes, and I've planned a special route through the cultural heart of the city. There's much to see." Their first stop was the Grand Library of Zell, a towering structure of holographic archives and ancient texts. As they entered, another human approached them. He was a middle-aged man with a kind face, wearing the insignia of a scholar. "Tom, meet Professor Harlin," Mira introduced. "He specializes in Xelian history." Harlin extended a hand. "Pleasure to meet you, Tom. Any friend of Myra's is a friend of mine." The professor led them through the interactive exhibits, detailing the centuries-old history of Nethus Prime. Tom was particularly fascinated by a display showing the peaceful resolution of an age-old conflict through dialogue and mutual understanding. "Your people have a rich history of diplomacy," Tom remarked, genuinely impressed. "Yes," Harlin smiled. "We believe in the power of words over weapons." Their tour continued to the bustling markets where artisans crafted traditional Xelian wares. Tom stopped at a stall where intricate metalwork was displayed. "This is incredible," Tom murmured, examining a finely wrought bracelet. "How long does it take to make one of these?" The artisan, a burly Xelian with skilled hands, looked up and replied, "Several days, human. Each one tells a story." Mira translated the more technical aspects of his technique as Tom listened, intrigued by the craftsmanship and care put into each piece. "Would you like to try making one?" the artisan offered with a challenging grin. Tom looked surprised but game. "Sure, why not? How hard can it be?" The next half hour was filled with laughter as Tom tried his hand at the delicate art of metalworking, with the artisan giving pointers and Mira offering encouraging words. The result was less than perfect, a lopsided bracelet, but Tom wore it proudly. "It's a reminder of today," Tom said, holding up his wrist. "A day well spent." As they left the market, Mira led them to a quiet park, where the city's noise faded into the background. They sat down on a bench overlooking a tranquil pond. "I didn't expect to find such peace in a busy city," Tom admitted, looking around. Mira smiled. "It's easy to overlook the quiet spots when you're caught up in the daily rush. Places like this are where we come to think, to breathe." Professor Harlin nodded. "It's important to find balance, Tom, especially in a place as diverse as this. You'll see a lot of that here, the bustling and the serene coexisting." As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the water, Tom felt a profound sense of connection, not just to Mira and Harlin, but to Nethus Prime itself. "This place. It's full of surprises," Tom said. "Yes," Mira agreed. "And it's only the beginning. There's much more to show you." As they walked back towards the city, the lights of the market flickering to life in the twilight, Tom knew he was in the midst of an extraordinary chapter of his life, one that would likely redefine his understanding of the universe and his place within it. Chapter 3. The Misunderstanding. The following morning, Mira and Tom decided to explore one of the lesser-known local festivals, a celebration of the harmonious coexistence of the various species on Nethus Prime. As they walked towards the festival grounds, they were joined by a new companion, Luca, a fellow human diplomat and an old friend of Tom's from the academy. "Luca, this is Mira," Tom introduced as they shook hands. Luca's easy smile made him instantly likable. "Great to meet you, Mira. Tom's told me a lot about you," Luca said, with a friendly nod. "Only good things, I hope," Mira replied, her tone playful. The festival was a vibrant tapestry of sounds, colors, and smells. Stalls lined the paths, each representing different planetary cultures. As they approached a booth showcasing traditional Xelian dance, Luca, caught up in the festivity, eagerly dragged them towards the front. "Come on, let's get a closer look," he exclaimed. The dancers moved with fluid grace, their limbs telling stories of ancient Xelian myths. Tom, mesmerized by the performance, failed to notice he had stepped on a ceremonial scarf laid out by the dancers, a grave disrespect in Xelian culture. Suddenly, the music stopped. The lead dancer, a tall Xelian with striking eyes, approached Tom, his expression stern. "You have defiled our sacred dance," he accused, pointing at the scarf under Tom's feet. Tom stepped back, horrified. "I'm so sorry, I didn't realize." Mira quickly stepped in, her voice calm but firm. "Please forgive him, he is new to our customs. It was an honest mistake." The dancer looked from Mira to Tom, his anger unabated. "Ignorance does not excuse disrespect." Luca interjected, trying to diffuse the tension. "Let us make amends. Tell us how we can correct this." The dancer hesitated, then said, "Join the dance. Learn our ways and show your respect through participation." Without a second thought, Tom nodded. "We will do it." "Right, Luca." "Absolutely," Luca agreed, though he shot Tom a nervous glance. The dancers instructed them on the basic movements. Tom and Luca, both out of their element but determined, followed as best they could, their awkward steps gradually becoming more synchronized with the Xelian rhythms. The crowd, initially hostile, began to cheer as Tom and Luca embraced the dance, their efforts bridging the gap between the cultures. The lead dancer, seeing their genuine attempt to honor his culture, finally offered a nod of approval. After the dance, as they retreated to a quieter corner of the festival, Tom wiped the sweat from his brow. "That was more intense than any diplomatic negotiation I've ever been in." Luca laughed, clapping him on the back. "You handled it well." "We both did." Mira, who had been watching them with a mix of anxiety and pride, finally relaxed. "You did, both of you. Thank you for respecting my culture, even in a mistake." "It's a powerful way to learn," Tom replied, his tone reflective. "By stepping directly into someone else's world." Luca nodded in agreement. "It's these moments that make us better diplomats, and better people." As the festival wound down, the trio left with a newfound respect for the complexities of cultural interactions on Nethys Prime. The day had started with a misunderstanding, but ended with laughter and stories shared over local delicacies, a testament to the unifying power of genuine effort and open hearts. Chapter 4. Closer Ties. After their intense experience at the festival, Tom and Mira ventured beyond the bustling city to the serene landscapes of Nethys Prime's countryside, seeking a quieter day. Today they were joined by another human, Dr. Eli Benson, a biologist specializing in xenobotany, who was eager to explore the planet's unique flora. As they trekked through the verdant fields, Eli's enthusiasm was contagious. "You see these?" He pointed to a cluster of bright, azure blooms. "They're not just beautiful, they play a crucial role in the local ecosystem. Each one can filter and purify the soil it grows in." Tom crouched down beside the flowers, fascinated. "Is that something we could replicate on Earth?" "It's possible," Eli mused, "with the right genetic tweaking." Mira watched them with a smile, her tunic shifting to a soft green, mirroring the surroundings. "Your interest in our planet is very heartening. It shows a respect that goes beyond diplomacy." They continued their walk, the landscape changing as they neared a series of small, cascading waterfalls. The air was cooler here, filled with the misty spray from the falls. "I didn't realize how diverse the geography here was," Tom said, taking in the view. "It's one of our most beloved retreats," Mira replied. "Not many outsiders get to see this place." As they sat by the water's edge, eating a picnic lunch Eli had insisted on preparing, the conversation shifted from professional to personal. "So, Mira," Eli began, after a thoughtful bite of a local delicacy, "what's it like, working with us humans?" Mira paused, choosing her words. "It's been enlightening. There are challenges, of course, but the potential for mutual growth is immense. Tom nodded, feeling the weight of her words. I hope we're up to the task. You've already shown great willingness to learn, Mira reassured him. The afternoon waned, and as they packed up to leave, Tom found himself walking beside Mira, a comfortable silence between them. He broke it as they approached a particularly stunning overlook. Mira, he stopped, unsure how to continue. Mira turned to him, her eyes curious. Yes, Tom. He took a deep breath. Today has been incredible. I've learned so much not just about Nethys Prime, but about you. I feel closer to you than I expected. Myra's expression softened, and her tunic deepened to a rich violet. I feel the same, Tom. It's not often we meet someone who truly wants to understand. They stood there for a moment, the setting sun casting long shadows over the landscape. Then, almost naturally, Tom reached out his hand, and Mira took it. Their fingers intertwined, a simple gesture that felt right. Without thinking, Tom leaned in, and Mira met him halfway. Their first kiss was gentle, hesitant at first, but grew more confident as they both acknowledged the connection they felt. When they finally parted, the sky was a canvas of oranges and purples, the sun a mere sliver on the horizon. That was, Tom started, but found he didn't have the words. Unexpected, Mira finished for him, her smile radiant. But not unwelcome. Eli, who had tactfully given them space, rejoined them with a knowing grin. Shall we head back? Yes, let's, Mira agreed, her hand still clasped in Tom's. As they walked back through the twilight, the cool air around them seemed charged with a new energy. What started as a day of exploration had become a significant step in their journey, not just across the planet, but towards each other. Chapter 5. The Conspiracy. Tom and Myra's newfound closeness was tested sooner than they expected. The following day, while touring a government facility with Mira and a new guide, Zon, a Xelian security officer, they stumbled upon something alarming. As they navigated through the corridors of the high-security archives, Zon's communicator beeped incessantly. He excused himself, stepping away to answer the call. Tom and Mira wandered into a dimly lit room filled with holographic data screens. Zon seems on edge today, Tom whispered, peering at the flickering displays showing various security feeds. Mira nodded, her brow furrowed. Yes, something's not right. He's usually more composed. Their curiosity piqued. They approached one of the screens. The data was encrypted, but a flashing icon indicated a security breach had recently occurred. What do you think this is? Tom asked, pointing at the icon. Before Mira could answer, Zon reappeared, his face pale. You shouldn't be in here, he said, his voice tense. Tom straightened up, meeting Zon's gaze. We saw the alert. What's happening, Zon? Zon hesitated, then sighed. There's been a leak. Sensitive information, possibly about the diplomatic talks, has been stolen. I was hoping it wasn't serious, but... Mira stepped forward. Is it a threat to the talks? Possibly, Zon admitted. We don't know who's behind it or what they want. Tom's mind raced. We need to find out. Can we help? Zon looked between Tom and Mira, then nodded reluctantly. All right, but we must be discreet. The trio quickly devised a plan. Using their respective clearances and skills, they accessed deeper layers of the facility's network. Tom's diplomatic ID allowed them to bypass certain security protocols, while Myra's knowledge of Xelian systems helped navigate the complex digital architecture. Hours passed as they traced the data's path through the network. Finally, Tom isolated a series of unauthorized access logs. Here, he said, pointing to a timestamp. The breach happened during a shift change. could be an inside job. Zon examined the logs closely. This points to the engineering section. Only a handful of people could access this. Determined, they decided to confront the suspected engineer. They found him in a lower level of the facility, wiping data from a terminal. "Gorin!" Zon shouted as they approached. The engineer turned, surprise registering on his face. "Zon? What?" "We know about the breach," Tom interjected. "We've seen the logs." Gorin's shoulders slumped, and he seemed to deflate. "I didn't have a choice. They have my family." Myra's expression softened. "Who are they? Maybe we can help." Gorin was hesitant, his eyes darting around nervously. Finally, he whispered, "It's a faction opposed to the peace talks. They think it will weaken our position in the galaxy." Zon stepped closer. "We can protect your family, Gorin, but you need to tell us everything." With Gorin's cooperation, they learned the location of the next meeting of the faction. It was risky, but they decided to go, hoping to gather enough evidence to expose the conspirators. Late that night, disguised and tense, they arrived at the meeting. Hidden in the shadows, they recorded the faction leaders discussing their plans to sabotage the peace process. Armed with the evidence, they returned to the security office. Gorin was taken into protective custody, and plans were made to apprehend the faction leaders. As the sun rose over Nethus Prime, Tom, Mira, and Zon watched the city awaken, their overnight mission a success, but their minds heavy with the implications. "We did well," Mira said quietly, leaning against Tom. "We did," Tom agreed. "But this is just the beginning, isn't it?" Zon nodded solemnly. "Yes, it's a long road ahead. But now we have a chance." Their bond, formed through shared secrets and dangers, was now sealed not just by mutual affection, but by a joint commitment to a larger cause. Chapter 6. The Trial. The Galactic Council Chambers, a sprawling edifice of glass and steel, bustled with activity as representatives of countless species filed in. Tom, Mira, and Zon stood off to one side, watching the dignitaries settle into their seats. Tom couldn't help but notice the sheer diversity of the beings around him. Feathered Calithians, aquatic Darrans in their mobile tanks, and towering Mornets whose deep voices rumbled through the hall. Mira adjusted the clasp of her formal tunic, her expression calm but serious. "This is the moment we've worked for." Tom nodded, feeling the weight of their mission. "And it'll come down to what we say in there." Zon, in his ceremonial Zelian armor, leaned closer. "Don't worry. Just speak from the heart. The evidence is on our side." Soon, a deep gong echoed through the chamber, signaling the start of the session. The head counselor, a stately Rytherian with opalescent scales, called the meeting to order. A hush fell over the room. "Today's session concerns the integrity of the diplomatic talks on Nethus Prime," the counselor announced. "We have reason to believe there have been attempts to undermine these negotiations. Representatives Tom Davis, Mira Seytal, and Security Officer Zon Grey, you have requested to present your findings. The floor is yours." The trio stepped forward, all eyes in the chamber on them. Tom glanced at Mira and Zon for reassurance before beginning. "Honored counselors, what we've discovered is deeply troubling. We've gathered evidence of a faction attempting to sabotage the peace process. Their actions threatened not only the negotiations, but the trust that all parties have placed in this council." As Tom spoke, Mira brought up holographic displays of the intercepted communications and security logs. The images hovered above the counselors' heads, showing clear links between the conspirators and key points of infiltration within Nethus Prime systems. These individuals, Mira explained, believed that peace would weaken their position in the galaxy. Their intent was to sow distrust, create conflict, and ensure that no agreement could be reached. Zon stepped forward next, his voice steady. However, thanks to the cooperation of certain brave individuals, including one who risked everything to provide us with critical information, we were able to trace the source of the breach and identify the key players. A low murmur spread through the chamber as the councillors absorbed the gravity of the situation. One councillor, a stern-faced humanoid from the Anrel Consortium, leaned forward. "Do you have evidence directly linking these individuals to the sabotage?" Mira nodded. "Yes, Councillor. In addition to the communication logs, we obtained recordings from a covert meeting where the conspirators explicitly discussed their plans. They intended to disrupt key negotiations and spread misinformation to undermine trust." Tom gestured towards the holograms. "If you examine the time-stamped logs and compare them with the movement records from the facility's security cameras, you'll see that the same individuals were present at critical moments. This is not conjecture, it's verified." Another councillor, this one a Zyrene with translucent skin, raised a tentacle. "What measures have been taken to ensure this faction cannot continue its activities?" Zon spoke with quiet authority. "Their leaders are already in custody, and the security systems have been reinforced. We've also implemented stricter protocols for information access. The measures we've put in place will prevent this sort of breach from happening again." The councillors deliberated for what felt like an eternity. Tom stood with Mira and Zon, waiting for their decision. Finally, the head councillor called for silence. "Representatives Davis, Seital, and Officer Gray, the Council commends your diligence and bravery. Your evidence is compelling, and it is clear that you have acted in the best interests of the negotiations. We will proceed with formal charges against the identified conspirators and take immediate steps to safeguard the talks." Tom let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Myra's hand found his, giving a reassuring squeeze. Zon allowed a rare smile to cross his face. As they left the council chambers, the weight lifted slightly from their shoulders. They had done what they set out to do: expose the threat, protect the talks, and ensure that the path to peace remained open. Walking out into the sunlight, Tom glanced at his companions. "We did it." Mira smiled, her tunic shifting to a light green. "We did." Zon nodded. "And now we can move forward with a clear path ahead." Their victory wasn't the end of the journey, but it was a crucial step. Together, they had made a difference, and that was what mattered most. Chapter 7. The Celebration. The Grand Hall of Nethys Prime sparkled under an array of bioluminescent decorations. Each species present had contributed their own cultural flair: floating orbs of light from the Mornets, delicate ribbon-like banners from the Darrens, and intricately carved sculptures from the Zelians. Music filled the space, a blend of intergalactic instruments harmonizing in a way that symbolized the unity everyone hoped to achieve. Tom adjusted the formal sash draped across his chest and glanced around. "This is something else," he said, turning to Mira. She stood beside him, her gown reflecting soft, shifting colors that matched the hall's ambient lighting. "I never thought I'd see so many species celebrating together," Mira said, a hint of awe in her voice. Zon joined them, dressed in ceremonial armor that gleamed under the lights. "It's not often you see this level of unity. Makes all the effort feel worth it, doesn't it?" Tom nodded. "It really does." As they mingled, representatives approached them one after another, offering congratulations and expressing gratitude for their role in preserving the peace talks. A Zyrene councillor, her translucent skin shimmering, approached with a warm smile. "Mr. Davis, Ms. Seital, Officer Gray," she said, her voice gentle yet firm. "Your efforts have shown us that cooperation is not only possible, but necessary. Please accept my thanks." "It was a team effort," Tom replied humbly. "We just did what needed to be done." The Zyrene inclined her head. And that is why your actions resonate with so many. Tonight's celebration wouldn't exist without your dedication." After she moved on, Tom turned to Zon. "How do you think Gorin's doing?" "He seemed pretty shaken when we last saw him." Zon folded his arms. "He's under protection and cooperating fully. I think he'll be okay in time. This event wouldn't have happened without his bravery, either." Mira added, "It's important we recognize everyone's role. This isn't just about us. It's about all the individuals who chose to do the right thing." As the evening progressed, the music shifted to a softer melody, signaling the start of the formal dances. The crowd began to gather on the dance floor, forming an intricate pattern that reflected the diverse cultures present. Tom noticed some familiar figures stepping onto the floor: ambassadors, council members, even a few Xelian dancers from the festival they had attended earlier. "I didn't know there was going to be dancing," Tom said, looking a little apprehensive. Mira tilted her head, a playful smile on her lips. "You've done it before. And you weren't half bad, remember?" "Right," Tom said with a small laugh. "As long as it doesn't involve ceremonial scarves this time." Mira held out her hand. "Shall we?" Tom hesitated, but Myra's confident gaze gave him courage. He took her hand, and together they joined the others on the dance floor. The steps were unfamiliar at first, but Mira guided him through them, her movements graceful and precise. Tom did his best to follow her lead, and gradually their rhythm fell in sync. "I think I'm getting the hang of it," Tom said after a few minutes. Mira laughed softly. "You're doing fine. Just follow the music." Nearby, Zon watched them with a faint smirk before being pulled into a dance by a Xelian colleague. The floor grew more animated as the crowd relaxed, and Tom found himself genuinely enjoying the moment. As the final notes of the dance faded, Tom and Mira stepped off the floor. She turned to him, her expression thoughtful. "You know, we've come a long way." "We have," Tom agreed, catching his breath. "And not just us. Everyone here. It's remarkable." Mira nodded. "And it's because we all worked together." They rejoined Zon, who was now chatting with a small group of counselors. "How'd it go?" he asked, noticing their flushed faces. "Better than expected," Tom admitted. "I might even say it was fun." Zon raised an eyebrow. "Is that so? I'll have to see it to believe it." Mira chuckled. "Next time, we'll make sure you're watching." The evening continued with more conversations, laughter, and shared experiences. For Tom, Mira, and Zon, it was not just a celebration. It was a reminder of what they had accomplished and what they could continue to achieve by working together. Chapter 8: New Beginnings.